New season means new predictions, but this time around I'm also making year-end ranking predictions for the WTA, and honestly speaking, these predictions seemed a bit more difficult and more fun than the ones that I made for the ATP. But for now, let's stop talking about men, cause it's time to give flowers to those ladies on the WTA tour who I think will finish the 2025 season in the top 20. And I'm going to start off with an interesting pick, cause in 20th spot I have Belinda Bencic. Basically I'm predicting a 470 spot climb for her, which sounds crazy, but when you take into account the fact that she was a solid top 20 player in the last 5 years before she took a break from tennis, I think she's a good top 20 pick that might make me look like a genius at the end of the year. In 19th I'm placing Donna Vekic, and yes, here I might be basing my prediction more on what my heart tells me rather than me being rational. But her results last year proved that people might be underrating her abilities on the court. I'm not saying that she will be a consistent force on the WTA tour this year, but I do believe that she can pull off some great runs at the big tournaments that would get her into the top 20 by the end of the year. Next up is Barbora Krejcikova, and if I'm being honest, this is the pick that I'm most unsure about, because basically everyone who predicts her in the top 20 hopes for a big run from her in some random tournament when nobody expects it. But what if it doesn't come? Then she is toast, which is why she's pretty low in the top 20. In 17th I have Elena Svitolina. I mean, for me it's an easy pick. She's just a solid player who wins matches that she should win and loses only when it's kind of expected, and in tennis it's enough to get into the top 20. Next up is Maria Sakkari, and she simply just isn't as bad as she was in 2024 season. We can poke fun at her unsuccessful Grand Slam runs, but objectively speaking she is a pretty good tennis player still, even though her United Cup performances are not filling me with too much confidence. Following her is Marta Kostyuk in 15th. Maybe I'm just too inspired and blinded by her ability to scratch and crawl her way to unbelievable wins, but I just do believe that she will be able to maintain her place in the top 20, even though there are a lot of talented players coming back or simply rising through the ranks in the women's tennis right now. And speaking of players coming back, in 14th it's Ons Jabeur. She definitely has the talent to be higher in the ranking, but the combination of her age and her injury history doesn't look that encouraging in terms of her being a top 10 player this season. In 13th I'm placing Daria Kasatkina. It's a slight drop off for her, but to be honest I wouldn't be able to explain how she constantly stays at the top of the women's game, so in my prediction I just can't put her any higher than 13th. Next up is Mira Andreeva. Yes, she is good, and in a few years she will possibly be great, but I feel like people are overrating her at this point in time. Not to say that being just outside of the top 10 isn't good, but some people are presenting her as the Grand Slam title contender, and personally I just don't see that happening. In 11th it's Alyona Ostapenko. I really wanted to put her higher, but it's no secret that she's a very streaky player, which is not good in terms of getting high in the rankings, but she will go on that hot streak at some tournament this year, and that will be the main reason for her solid ranking at the end of the year. Starting off the top 10 it's Emma Navarro. As we saw last year, she will do anything to keep herself high in the rankings, and to be honest I respect the grind, but with that in mind she is just not better than the players higher on the list. Following her is Diana Schneider. Last season was a breakout season for her in the WTA tour. She won 4 titles, but there is still room for improvement in the major tournament department, and I do think that she will be able to make those improvements next year. In 8th I have Jasmine Paolini, and in my opinion she's the equivalent to Taylor Fritz on the WTA tour. Obviously I'm not talking about the game style, but what I'm talking about is that I feel that Jasmine is a great player, but last year we saw her playing on a level that I don't see her being able to maintain in the future. Still, I think that we will see her at the WTA final, so it's not like I'm disrespecting her too much. Next up is Qinwen Zheng. After her last season that saw her rise to the superstardom, at least in her native market, you will think that she will improve her ranking, but I just don't feel like she's able to produce her best tennis consistently enough in order to get to the top 5 in the rankings. Speaking of consistency, in 6th I have Jessica Pegula. Simply speaking, being solid all year round gets rewarded. In 2022 she was 3rd, in 2023 she was 5th, in 2024 she was 7th, and in 2025 I don't see a single reason as to why she would drastically decline. Before we get into the top 5, let's go through some honorable mentions. Here I went for Amanda Anisimova, Marketa Vondrousova and Leylah Fernandez. As the player who will experience the biggest dropout this year, I picked Danielle Collins, and I chose Bianca Andreescu who is the player who will experience the biggest rise in the rankings in 2025. But at top 5 we'll start off with Elena Rybakina. The biggest question marks for her are her injuries. That's not a secret, but I feel like last year was exceptionally bad for her in that department, so I expect a slight improvement on her 2024 year-end ranking. But honestly, I'm still being skeptical about her ability to stay on the court long term. Just outside of the top 3, I have the best player of our generation, Iga Swiatek. This prediction has the potential to be an awful one at the end of the next year, but I wanted to spice it up a bit. I think that it will take her time to get used to the new coaching staff, and throughout the season she might go through some growing pains that will negatively influence her ranking. But I'm sure that she will get back to that number 1 spot, but not next season. In third, I have Karolina Muchova. I chose her as the player who will bring change to the top 3 of the women's tennis. I understand that it is kind of a long shot, but the game is obviously there. The bigger question is her ability to stay healthy. But I will be positive this time around, and I will believe that she will be able to stay relatively healthy in 2025. And now I have to pick between Coco, Gauff and Aryna Sabalenka, and in 2025 I'm going with Coco Gauff as the year-end world number 1. I think this will be the year when Coco will win another Grand Slam. Her form at the end of 2024 looked exceptional. Her start to the season looks great as well, so why not go for her as the number 1 in this prediction? So these are my 2025 predictions. Let me know what you think of them in the comment section down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, take it easy, my friend.